Zach Sieler is getting the bag today, and we are getting lots to talk about as fallout from Sieler's 3-year extension here on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, and NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off of your first purchase. I have to think Zach Sieler is now able to buy a whole lot of tickets to a Dolphins home game thanks to this 3-year contract extension that he and the Dolphins agreed to last night. And this hit, I was out, kids getting some ice cream, and it's kind of the backwoodsy area. I get back to the house and the phone, bing, 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 bing. Look down, this 15 minutes ago, Dolphins agreed to terms on a 3-year contract extension with Zach Sieler. The official terms of this deal, as it has been reported, are interesting because it's giving you peeking through keyholes at some of the details, but there's that reporting language that always makes it a little bit more complicated to get a feel for exactly what the terms of the deal are. But here's what we know at this point in time. Zach Sieler had a 2-year contract remaining off of his 3-year extension that he signed ahead of 2023. And it was $15.95 million was what he was scheduled to receive from 25 and 26 combined. The new extension is 3 years on top of that for up to, keyword here, Adam Schefter, I see you. I know what you're doing. Up to $67.75 million. It includes $44 million guaranteed, not necessarily guaranteed at signing. And Drew Rosenhaus had a spot with Josh Moser and talked a little bit more about some of the details here we're going to get into. But 3 years, $67.75 million max value, $44 million guaranteed. Is now the Dolphins' highest paid defensive player. Drew Rosenhaus on his spot with Josh Moser put in the highest paid Dolphins player in franchise history, I believe. Or highest paid Dolphins defensive tackle in franchise history. Yeah. So we're playing the game, right? And we want to get our wins. And I've said about Drew Rosenhaus and Rosenhaus Sports as an agency, I like playing in the sandbox with them because there's a lot of mutual ground that's able to be found, right, for players. And I look at this deal, and you look at some of the averages. 22.58 per year in new money is the max value of this contract. That would rank Zach Sieler 10th amongst all defensive tackles. That in and of itself, for a player who has double-digit sacks in each of the last 2 seasons and has been a war daddy as far as the sacks that he's taken and is a leader in the locker room and A, B, C, X, Y, and Z, anything that you can point to. A deal that currently slots 10th. And that's with the reported up to terms. What are the not up to terms? Because there's a couple of guys that are sitting at 22.5 in Deron Payne and Dexter Lawrence. Plus you have Leonard Williams at 21.5. All of those guys could potentially leap over Sieler from a total value perspective of the new years of the new money on the new years of the contract, depending on how hard and likely to be attained are whatever incentives and how much of it is incentives for this reported max value of $67.75 million. And that's the game that's always played when you first start reporting deals, right? But Zach's now under contract through 2029 because it was 2 years remaining plus 3 new years on top of it. It's 5 years of player control, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. I'm not a math guy, but I can do that. Spoiler alert. I did a lot of math overnight on this based off what we currently know. And the total value across the 67.75 in new money across 3 new years, plus the pre-existing, effectively round up, call it 16 million. I'm also not a math guy, but I can do that math. It's about 83.75, 83.7 to be exact, $1 million is the 5-year commitment for the Dolphins. So if you take that average, and you would have to do that for every defensive tackle contract to get a true snapshot of where it ranks versus all players. But the things that were working against Zach in this, and I thought Zach had a good answer for this at training camp when he was asked about it. He referred to himself as a little bit more of a low miles player than what his age might indicate because he was a late bloomer and his first year in Baltimore, he didn't play. And then he was on and off and on and off and on and off and on and off the roster before the Dolphins claimed him off the waiver wire. And then he sticks in Miami, right? His first 2 years, like he really played sparing amounts of football. So a little bit lower average mileage than your typical 30-year-old defensive lineman. And he turns 30 in about a month on September 7th. Happy early birthday to Zach. Here's a big contract extension. That's one. And then the fact that he had 2 years of player control left. And I know that was the big question for, do you do a deal? Do you not do a deal? And how you did deals in past years. And well, he has multiple years left on his contract. But the argument from my frame of mind has always been, and I've said this on this program, I've said this in writing, I said this on A to Z Sports, I said this on the Joe Rowe Show. If you wouldn't do it for Zach Sieler, who in God's name would you do it for? Right? Like, and I walked away from the press conference he had when I was there at training camp and felt even more convicted in that for how he handled it with grace and he handled it with humility and he handled it with confidence and non-judgment for how other guys have handled it. And he is a leader on this team, and he is rewarded for what has been 2 years of outperforming his prior contract. But he didn't fuss and make a stink and went about it the right way. And I think for the Dolphins organizationally, when you think about what they've aspired to be, um, any kind of business model can work with the right people. Zach Sieler is one of those people that serves as the right people for what the Dolphins business model has been. And he's a great player. And now he's well compensated. And hopefully he gets a little bit more respect across the league because I think he's earned it. I think he deserves it. Now, what else Zach gets, what this means for the Dolphins and their salary cap situation. There's a whole bunch of stuff left to get into, including some more looks at where this contract ranks across defensive tackles across the league. All of that is next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies on the green or making memories with friends, this is a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest. Some days on the course or off it, you need that little extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I'm not going to lie to you. I was up at 4 this morning. We got a late head to bed last night, and then we got an early start this morning. And 5-Hour Energy gives you that kick in the pants to get your day off and running. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid till September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36 or perhaps just grinding some tape. Get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. This one got me fired up last night. And I said this on social media already. I'll put it out here on the podcast too. I'm not saying the mullet going away is why Zach Sieler got his contract this weekend. But I'm also not saying that the mullet going away isn't why Zach Sieler got his contract extension. As you continue to kind of dig through the layers of what we know, and we still, like, everybody's asking me about the salary cap. Do need to figure out what the actual signing bonus is going to be before I can say with any level of confidence. Now, you could tell me Rosenhaus on the Josh Moser spot said that it was $34 million in 2-year cash flow. So Zach was scheduled to get $15.95 million in cash. He's going to get 34. So it's more than twice the amount over the next 2 years for what should be years of Zach's prime. How much of that 34 million is a signing bonus? Is it a $20 million signing bonus with a minimum salary and then he plays for next year for cheaper? Is it a lower signing bonus and then all of next year is a higher rate when you have a higher cash flow projection? And, you could tell me they do 15 on a signing bonus. You could tell me they do 25 on a signing bonus. And I'd believe it either way. Right. So that's the big question everybody has. What we know is it's $34 million in cash over the next 2 seasons in 2025 and 2026 combined. Where does that rank amongst NFL defensive tackles? I'm glad you asked because I did the math. As a non-math guy, I checked it and double checked it and triple checked. It ranks 14th amongst NFL defensive tackles. The 2-year cash flow per spot track, $34 million ranks behind Dallas, who got Oso Digizua locked in at $39 million in cash over the next 2 years from a cash flow perspective. The guarantees are tricky because it's reported as $44 million in guarantees. Well, Zach Allen from Denver got a contract extension this week, and this was going to be the show today. Hey, Zach Allen got paid, and it's $25.5 million across 4 years, and he got $69.5 million in guarantees. So how does that impact Zach Sieler, right? But that's $69.5 million in guarantees. The terms, when you look at over the cap and spot track, already the contract's been signed. They get their hands on the actual terms. What was guaranteed at signing is $44.25 million. So it's reported as $69.5 million, and in reality, it's 44.25 is what is guaranteed when he puts pen to paper. Now, next March, I would expect his 2027 salary is going to guarantee. But right now, it's only 44.25. So when Zach Sieler's contract gets reported as having $44 million in guarantees, is that all guaranteed at signing? We know the 2-year cash flow is $34 million. That I would assume that is definitely fully guaranteed. So is it $34 million guaranteed at signing, fully guaranteed at signing? So this year and next year's pay is fully guaranteed. And then the 2027 salary, that's a guarantee, but maybe it's not fully guaranteed at signing, although maybe it is guaranteed at signing. Does that guarantee next March or in 2 Marches? So if he's on the roster at the beginning of the league year in 2026 or 27, then $10 million of his 2027 salary would guarantee, right? Like these are the games that you can play to kind of, here's a flashy number here and here's a flashy number there. But in reality, I'm going to pull the sheet out from the table and not pull over any of the kitchen plates or the fine china. And it's all sleight of hand. But in reality, like there's a core, tangible, digestible figure. I would expect that the 34 million fully guaranteed at signing is what we're working with here. If it was all of it, it would rank 9th versus 13th. So you're still looking at a fringe top 10 to fringe top 15 contract. And we already mentioned, the Dolphins win a year shorter. And his contract, Zach's, checks in a couple $1 million per year short of what Zach Allen got. Zach Allen is effectively 2 years younger than Zach Sieler is. And the total guaranteed at signing for the Zach Allen contract, if he's 2 years younger and he gets $44.25 million, that's 2 years of pay. His full guarantees are going to run out by the time he turns the age that Zach Sieler is now. So it's just funny to see a player who I'd put in a similar stratosphere and how the Broncos handled the guarantees on that contract and how that has in turn foreshadowed, if you will, some of the concessions that I think Rosenhaus and Sieler and Miami all had to come together and find some common ground on because age and duration of pre-existing contract. Zach Allen got a fourth year on his deal, but Allen also did not have 2 years left on his contract. He was in a contract year this year. So you piece it all together. Zach Sieler gets a 5-year, $83.7 million commitment in totality from the Dolphins. I would assume that 34 million of that is fully guaranteed at signing. If it's all, if the reported 44 is all guaranteed at signing, he would go from 12th in that category or 13th in that category up to 9th in that category. And he would be in the DeForest Buckner, Zach Allen territory. As far as what we can expect from a salary cap space perspective, everybody's been asking, what is the Dolphins salary cap situation? And it's been tough because there's been some moving parts. There's been some things that haven't fully updated yet. What we did know was that when the Dolphins kind of reshuffled the money on the Minkah Fitzpatrick contract, it got them a little over $11 million in cap space. And Daniel Brunskill, we know, ended up being a minimum salary player. So they were at about $1 million in cap space, then got 11 more from Minkah Fitzpatrick. So that moved them to 12. But that was before we knew what the terms of the Jack Jones and Mike Hilton contracts were. So if they're minimum salary players, you're still going to be sitting at, it's going to be about $11.5 million in cap space before the Zach Sieler move. Do I expect you got both of those guys as minimum contract players? No, I do not. So that's where when you start getting into Zach and what this move can create from a cap space perspective, you get into these other dangling details. You have some questions. That's what we're going to finish with here today on Locked On Dolphins. So make sure you guys stick with us. You ever decide last minute that you want to head down to the ball game with family or friends? Maybe it's game day. You suddenly realize that you want to be there to take it in person. And that's exactly where Game Time comes in. It is the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without all the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you could splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets with the lowest prices guaranteed. So the Dolphins sitting before you factor in Zach Sieler, it's about $11 to $12 million in cap space, minus whatever the difference is from what Jack Jones and Mike Hilton got to the 51st player on the roster. And the 51st player on the roster right now, from a finance perspective, is $1.03 million in cap commitment. So if Jack Jones signed for $1.5 million, hypothetically, then you would have to take the salary cap space the Dolphins have at about $12 million and then subtract $470,000 off. So I would guess the Dolphins are probably, before the Zach Sieler move, we're probably sitting somewhere between $9.5 and $11 million. I don't think either one of those guys broke the bank in a big way, because obviously if they had a robust market, they'd have signed somewhere else by now. I don't think that makes you automatically disqualified from having value to present to a team. Are there risks? Yes. Mike Hilton is an older player who's no longer in the prime of his career physically and does not really have an outside corner profile. Jack Jones, off the field, is kind of in the books. He's worn out his welcome in multiple teams and is now on a 1-year deal. And there's consistency execution-wise as far as the coverage matrix and what you do. There's risk in both of those guys. But risk doesn't, in my mind, disqualify you from holding tangible value to the football team. and potentially being an asset. And because I think both guys can be an asset, but that's neither here nor there. Um, so with Zach Sieler, you need to be able to account for what was prorated out already. So he was already scheduled for a $12.4 million cap charge. And 3.4 million of that was a prorated portion of his signing bonus. And then when they restructured his contract last year. So his static figure is going to be 3.4. That's left over from money that he's been paid in past years that's been restructured and spread into future years. He will probably have a signing bonus and then a minimum salary as far as the base salary. And the minimum salary for him is going to be $1.125 million. 0.125. So before you get into what portion of the signing bonus it is, it's a little over $4.5 million in minimum salary and past prorated amounts of money. Now, if he got, call it an even number, call it $20 million signing bonus. And he's under contract for 5 years now. So there's no need to add void years on the back end of it or anything like that. We can automatically stack those years on and spread that $20 million out across 5 seasons. Would be, I'm not a math guy, $4 million per year for 5 years. So if you added 4 million to the 4.5 lingering from base salary that exists and past prorated money, it's about $8.5 million, which means you'd save about $4 million in cap space with a $20 million signing bonus. We'll see what it could be higher, it could be lower. It depends on where the Dolphins choose to play the game within the game for the cash flow and what gets paid up front. Because it seems like cash spend this year, the priority has been to gear it down. So do you want to spend less this year and then spend more next year? And if the wheels fall off the bus and Zach has a great year and you're going to continue to tear it down and you get somebody that offers you something, you get a trade opportunity in 2026. I'm not saying any of that's should happen, but that's when you build these contracts, building your exit ramps and protecting yourself as an organization from even things that might not be the player's fault, but pivots, changes of direction. It's been what the Dolphins have said for a really long time has been the utmost priority thing for them. And they kind of painted themselves into the corner with how they approached really aggressively going out and getting big contracts. And you see them kind of scaling back down into that. So that's the interesting question for me is how big is the signing bonus? Do you want to pay it up front and get it over with? Or do you want to pay a lower portion of it, but guarantee next year's and then have that as wiggle room to play with and figure out what you want to do with? That's the big question that I have right now. That is going to do it for us here today on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Monday. Be back again with some more Miami Dolphins talk coming your way a little later, either tonight or tomorrow, depending on what comes down the chute. So keep it locked in right here, Locked On Dolphins, your team every day. Kyle Krabs and I am out of here. Go Fins.